Mrs. Hartmann, in 1983, you had an exceptional experience. Would you tell me how this came about? One evening, I attended a meeting in the Christian community, and when I entered the room there, a very, very deep knowing overcame me, saying, "Tonight, God will speak to you." I had a major operation coming up the next day, so I was quite worried. And while praying, I had my eyes closed and a kind of curtain opened sideways before my inner eyes. And I saw the entire universe, the Milky Way, and still farther than that. And all this was indescribable. The infinity of the sky and of the starry sky, the galaxies. You mean to tell me you saw galaxies? Yes, I saw galaxies, one after the other, in succession, as in a film, as if a film was running, and this film was coming up to me. As for me, I was sitting in the room the whole time, and that's where all this was happening. And then I saw, on the left side, I saw something, but this was something I can't describe. And then I felt some knowing coming into me that what I saw was good, and that this is good. On the other side, I saw people, a group of people, and I knew that these were humans on earth. And what I then saw was God's love for us. And this is really indescribable. Our brain can't grasp it at all. And I was looking further then into this microcosm that is just as great and infinite as the macrocosm. However, everything became smaller and smaller and smaller, then infinitely smaller. It's just simply incomprehensible for us humans. And further, I still saw how all this is held together, the macrocosm and the microcosm, with everything belonging to it, held together by God Himself. And He just simply revealed Himself in the form of a layer, and this layer was encompassing it all. And I knew this is God holding everything in His hands. Thereupon, the curtains closed before my inner eyes once again. And why do you think you had such an experience? Well, I was in a difficult phase of life. I was suffering from cancer, and a treatment with caesium, as well as a serious operation, were still to come. And so I engaged fully in the hereafter. My soul, my inside, everything was focused on this. And it was the first time I had such an experience with the beyond, and it was really incredible. There were no human words to communicate all this in a properly understandable way. It was in 1990 that you had an impressive after-death contact with your deceased husband. Yes, one evening, well, I'll just say in preface, my husband had died about 6 weeks earlier. He was suddenly standing next to my bed saying, "Move over, give me some space," just as he used to say. And then he lay down in bed with me. And he said to me, "You know, I've come to tell you that everything is just fine. And it was always clear to me that everything is fine for him now. And these, my thoughts, he must have understood, perceived, or heard. Whereupon he got out of the bed again and just vanished. How did you see or feel him? I saw him as he used to be when he was alive. And I saw him, I felt him, and I also felt his warmth. And yet I was indeed frightened that he had come back. But he had come back to say goodbye to me and to let me know it's all good. And this is something that was very important to him. Did this visit comfort you? Yes, extraordinarily. You had still another experience. Yes, indeed. One afternoon, I was sitting in the living room reading a book. And when I looked up from the book, I saw a group of people standing by the dining table. They were gesticulating and talking very animatedly. But I didn't understand a thing, and they didn't pay any attention to me anyway. I don't know what kind of beings they were either. Maybe spirit beings. And when I looked back at the book and then looked up a second time, they were all gone. Were these beings dressed normally? Yes, they were dressed quite normally, so there was nothing unusual about them. No, there was nothing unusual. You had yet another experience where you heard a voice. Yes, and this was also something exceptional. In the Christian community, we were discussing Corinthians 12. That is about spiritual gifts. And there it says, every man has at least one or two gifts. The next day at home, I asked in prayer, what actually is my spiritual gift? The answer came promptly, and I heard it acoustically. It's all there. You just have to make use of it. So, what did that mean to you? I actually pondered for years what it could mean. Well, I knew that a bit of civil courage is necessary for that, but also that you just have to put it into practice. It's always about doing something, and you don't want to disgrace yourself then either. Therefore, trying something out that isn't always that easy, you had yet another experience during a night vigil for a dying person that you knew. I was asked one day by a dear friend of mine if I couldn't, from time to time, keep the night vigil for her father. And yes, I was happy to do that, also because we had been friends with the whole family for many years. A bed was prepared for me in the adjoining room, and I lay in it, but only in order to relax. And there, all of a sudden, I saw a very large golden crucifix that was as high as the room and was shining brightly. It was a luminous divine light, and it was shining really brightly, very brightly. And shortly thereafter, the man passed away. Do you have an explanation as to why you saw this crucifix? Well, the only thing I can think of is that this golden shining crucifix was a sign for me that Ernst was soon going to die. He was a devout man, and I realized that he was happy to enter into his true home. A good 14 years ago, you had yet another near-death experience. Can you describe to me how this came about? Well, one night I woke up in space. I knew immediately, now I'm treading the path of death. And my first thought, my perception, was that it's going downwards in a way quite easily. So I said to myself, I don't want to go down. Whereupon it just only went forward on a plane. I knew that now I'm on a very powerful path and that I was allowed to do something even more powerful. So I looked around. It was twilight and I was on the way alone, and I touched my body, realizing that I was non-material in my body, my soul and my spirit. That seems a contradiction, yet the whole of it was not consisting of matter. But I could sense my body, just not feel it. I was really able to sense it. And it was lying on a non-material pillow. And this pillow was traveling on a non-material track, constantly, straight ahead. And I thought to myself, I'm really afraid now. I'm moving towards something even more powerful, even greater. I'm quite afraid. Then I thought, no, I'm not afraid. But I'm filled with a very great, really great awe, because I was going to meet God there. And I was still on my journey. I was still alone. No one else was with me. And I knew my body was now dead in bed. Time passed. Certainly it might have felt like 15 or 20 minutes when I finally saw a wonderful, warm light rising on the horizon. And toward that light, I was speeding faster than the speed of light. When I arrived, I got a glimpse inside, whereupon my heart started beating again. And within a split second, would you believe, I was back in my physical body. When you were moving there in space, what did you see around you? Well, nothing visible. It was just twilight. And I was all alone in space. I was just sitting there, thinking about what I was moving toward. Why do you think this was a near-death experience? Were you at the time physically ill? Or what might have been the cause? No, I was not ill, but I do have cardiac arrhythmia. And in this context, I had been expecting something like this to happen to me for quite some time, because I don't have it treated. Could it be that your heart had stopped? Yes, my heart had stopped. For how long, I had no idea. What impact did all these experiences have on your worldview? I'm a world of faith through and through. And all of it has confirmed my faith. And it was the best thing in my life that happened to me. It was the most important thing. But I only put it all in simple words, because there are no divine words that we are able to translate into our language. It makes many things big and others small and unimportant. I know that a life ends at some point, and that it's important that we live our life. maybe according to our task. Even if I don't always succeed, but I know this. I have been thinking about the earthly world and the hereafter for decades. And now I know that the heart of a person's life is basically love. Love for God, for oneself, and for one's neighbor. Are you still afraid of dying? No, I'm not afraid of dying, because I know I will enter into the glory of God. But of course, from now until the last breath, this can still be difficult. And I have the utmost respect for this, or at least also a little fear. But you are convinced that there is a world beyond and a life after death? Absolutely, affirmatively, for everyone. But I also believe that we will then be facing God's judgment. Mrs. Hartmann, I so much thank you for this wonderful interview.